So now, Savita, are you ready?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
All right, so I'll share my screen. Let me know when you see it. Do you see my screen now?
It's coming up, I believe. Yeah, it's loading.
Yeah, my computer has been a little slow, so if you guys could be a little patient.
Okay, we can see it now.
See it now? Okay.
Yes.
All right, that was a wonderful performance by Diksha. That makes me nervous now.
Thank you, Savita.
Yeah. All right, so let's dive a little deeper into the JWT authorization, how we implement in our Node.js project. So this is what we currently have. We have the MongoDB as a database on the cloud, and then the API project is Node.js, and our client is in React.js, and all of that is on the cloud. So we're going to leave all the other components intact. All we are going to do is add authorization to our routes in the Node.js project. So that's the only piece we are going to change. So today, the agenda for rest of the meeting is going to be, I'll first do a JWT demo, and it'll be done through Postman because we're not going to make any changes to the React client. We'll try to test our code through the Postman. So I'll do a demo using Postman. And the current version of the APIs is on products, right? On products, we have get, create, update, delete. Those are the 4 APIs on the product table that we have, and they're all public. Public meaning anyone can access it. You don't need any user ID, you don't need any password. Like anyone who knows the path to the API, the route of the API, will be able to get that data, retrieve that data, and modify that data. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave that version as is, as version 1. So our current existing React client API doesn't break, but we'll create a version 2 of the same APIs. And when we create the second version of the API, we will leave the get route as public, and we will make create, update, delete as private. So these are the 3 routes that we're going to protect because this is what modifies the data. Now, to create a private route or to protect these routes, we need a concept of a user, right? Like Diksha explained. So you need an authenticated user, and the authorized user, this user who's authorized to log into the app, will have access to these private routes, the routes that we are going to protect using the JWT token. So for the user, we'll need a table in our Mongo database to store the username and email, password, or the information about the user. So for this, we're going to add 3 APIs, register, login, and logout. So register is going to create the user for you. Login will be used to log in. The user will be able to log into the system. And then logout is, just quit the system. And once the demo is done in Postman, we'll go through the code and see how to generate the JWT token using one of the JavaScript libraries and how to protect the routes. And then later on, we'll also look into the register and login API of the user. So let's jump into the code. Or let's jump into the demo first. So you see this Postman.
Wait, I can't see your screen. Can everyone see your screen?
Can you see Postman? I have Postman open.
No.
Let me. I'll stop sharing and start again.
Yeah, share the entire desktop.
Let me try that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sharing.
Okay.
Do you see Postman now?
It's coming up. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. You can see.
Okay, cool. Yeah, my laptop is acting weird. So for that, to be able to run those routes through Postman, I need to start my Node API project. So I'm going to do that. All right, so now I have the API project running. Let's go to Postman. So this is the existing API we have, right? So to get the list of all the products, we have the get route. So we see we have 8 items in this. And if we want to add a product, we can add a product. So now we have 9 products in total. So 1 product got added. So these API are open to anyone. There's no user, there's nothing. As long as you have access to, as long as you know this API link URL, you'll be able to add the product or you'll be able to get a list of products. Now let's try to go to this API, which is protected. So now let's see if we can add this product. So now it comes back saying invalid token. So this route we have protected, and because you're not logged in as any user, it's not going to let you add any product. But we did leave the get route open to everyone. Not this, get all products. So if we try to get all products, so you see those 9 items, right? So to be able to do this validation and authorization that only authorized user is able to add the product, let's register a user. So we created a route, register route, and this is the information we're going to pass. First name, last name, email, and a password. So once we run this, so it adds the user, it creates the collection and it adds this user to our database. And this is the token it has returned. And this was the token that Diksha was showing in her earlier presentation. So before we go to that token, let's go to our Mongo database and see if we have, so you see this user got added, right? So we have this user in our Mongo database. And now if we take this token and let's see what this token really contains, like what's the payload of this token. So we'll go to the same website that Diksha was showing us. And it has this as the payload, right? My name, the IAT, expiration, ID of that user. So we see that this token contains the information that was sent, and we didn't pass it any password or anything. We don't want to send any sensitive information there. All right, so now behind this, okay, so now let's try to add a product. Now that the user is logged in and we have a token, so let's see if we are able to add this product now. And this is the protected route. So if we do a send, and it did let us add a product, so now we have a count of 10. So what's happening behind the scene here is there is this authorization, and it contains this bearer token. The token got passed here, and that's the info. With this route, the authorization got passed in the header, the token value. So now if we change it back to no auth, that is, we are not passing any token information, and then we are trying to run this route. So there's no user behind it. We're not passing any authorization, no token. Let's see if it lets us add it. So again, it says invalid token, right? So to pass the token, you have to add a key value to the header of this request. And the key is authorization. And based on the JWT protocol, the value of that key needs to, let me see, needs to start with a bearer and a space, and then the token of that user. So if you take this token.
Can you not pass this information, the token information, in the payload? I know what you're trying to do there, and you want to try to put that in the header, but can you also not, I mean, I know you're using Postman right now, but in general speaking, can you also pass that same token information in the payload where you're sending the data as session ID or token ID?
I guess we can pass it there and change our code according to that, but I think all this information, initial information, needs to be passed in the header, and the header goes first and then the payload goes. Milton, do you have a better?
Yeah, it needs to be passed in the header. So that is the
header.
Yeah,
so
it needs to be.
This is Rupak. It's a very standard way of sending authorization information through headers. That's everywhere. That's standard.
Standard.
So that's a convention that we follow, right?
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
an easy way to send it. But I'm just saying, can you also send that in the payload, like in the content where you have the?
I mean,
no.
You can do whatever you want
in
your application, but the standard is that. I mean, you can do whatever you want.
The reason is
possible
that.
to do so.
So I think also, for example, go ahead, Preeti, finish it.
So the thing is that you can do that, but there is no use for it because when the packets of information is sent on the in the internet, so the server looks for all the information it needs in the header. It doesn't go into the body. It discards the body. So it's in the header only that the server requires all the information it needs to know where it comes, the packet of the information it comes from and where it is going, the source and the destination. So even though if you send it in the body, it's of no use to the server or the router.
So that I understand. Thank you very much for explaining. What I was actually getting into, I'm not a coder person, so that's a little bit different. But I mean, I know using Postman, but when it comes to real coding and stuff, I know in Postman you can. There is a way, right? You can get the code where what you exactly sending it, right? There's an option there. I think maybe in your right side you have cookies and code. You can click on that and you get the whole thing. So maybe there's an option there that you can send the whole thing as it is. Now, what you're seeing there as header, I think maybe in Postman is showing as header, but I think it's in the code, right? When you send it.
Hey, is this who is this Sikandar or who's asking?
If this is a stupid question, then that's not.
No, that's totally fine. So what I'm saying is,
I'm not actually. By the way, just a disclaimer. I have absolutely no idea about JSON. I mean, I do actually, but I'm talking about I'm not a developer, so.
No, I usually just like to say.
Trying to ask questions so we can.
No, that's questions are good. That means you're getting it right. So I think part of it is also convention. So the way we have written our application is our Node.js project, which is API, is a separate project. So for example, it would be written by a different set of people, right? Or maybe a totally different company. And then we have our client, React.js, which is written by a different team or maybe a totally different company. So now if this different team needs to access the API that's written by a different set of people, then there has to be a common convention that there has to be a common language that both can talk with each other. So if as a team, like if the API team comes up with a standard saying the token, we are going to send it in the body and it's going to be a key value pair and the key name is going to be JWT instead of authorization, then that needs to be conveyed to the client team. And then they need to follow because they need to read that token out, right? That value out. So it's just a convention that's common to everyone, like throughout the industry. So if someone else has it, like say if you want to start using say Google API, right? So Google company is different and you are a small company or a startup company. So if they say that we are using JWT token, then all you need to know is that token value. You don't need to ask them, how are you passing? Are you passing in the headers? Do you have a bearer in front of it? Do you have a space? So these are common conventions that are kind of standardized. And I think it's in that RFC. So if everyone follows that convention, that then it's easier to code against. But yeah, if your company, if your single team is writing the server application, writing the database, writing the client, then you can come up with whichever way you want to kind of
So I think
code and decode it.
was, I think, more about Postman, I guess, than anything, I guess, I guess a little bit. But anyway, so in header, I'm not gonna drag this question because I think we can continue. But I think the question might be that I think the header you're defining there as authorization and the token is more like a variable placeholder. So once you get a session authentication done, authorization done, now you have a placeholder. So all subsequent commands will use that header and already placeholder token and send it with every command. So you don't have to put the token there. But if you don't do that here, you can still use that token in the code as well. But in that situation, every command will have that token additionally because now you did not define the globally variable which can go with every command. But that's a different topic. That's fine. Okay, I got it. Actually. Thank you very much for explaining.
Yeah, no problem. And then sending it from a client application, maybe we can do it as a next presentation. So in this presentation, we're treating Postman as our client. So in Postman, it gives us this nice GUI to put the key value pair, and we send it. But when we are coding it in the client application, which might be React, it might be Angular or anything, then the header of the request that we create, in that case, we'll add a key authorization header dot request dot header dot authorization, and key would be bearer space the token, right? The token that the server sent us back. So we'll keep sending that in the request. But in this case, we're just using the Postman. Okay. All right. So we had tried to add the product by changing the auth to no auth, right? But now we'll add the authorization again. And now let's see if we can add this product. So now that it had the token in the header, it sent the authorization bearer space token. It has that, the server kind of validates it's the right signature, and then it lets us add this item. So now we saw that without the token, we could not add through the protected route. And when we added the token, the server let us add the route, right? Add the product to the to our database. So now let's, all right. So this was the way that I manually removed the authorization, right? Now let me try to log out this user. So the way I log out is, there's another API to log out. I log out in the data, there's no token. Now if I try to add this product,
you may have to
remove this too, right? Because I had manually added that. So now if I try to, so again, it says invalid token. And to get the valid token again, let me try to log in again because I'm logged out, there's no token, nothing. So if I log in again, I get this token. So I'm logged in. Now let's see if I can add the product again. This is my protected route, right? Oh, so this no auth, I have to change it back to bearer token. So we need to set all these headers right for it to work. So earlier it was no auth, so it didn't let me add. So I'm logged in now. I changed my authorization to bearer token. And now let's see. Still not.
make sure there is a value. Go into.
Why is this bearer token, right?
Yeah, and yeah, now it
There's
should
a
work.
value.
It should work now.
Okay. So now if I send. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so now it had the correct headers and there was a value in the token and it let me add the product. Okay, so we saw this. Now let's get into the code. Let's see how we write the code for this. So the first thing we'll see in the code is how we generate that token. So we saw that the token got generated when we were registering the user, right? So when we register the user, this is the method that gets called, register, on the auth controller. You see it here, right? So this is where we have coded the register user. So we registered the user with the first name, last name, email, and password. If you look at the body of the register, this is the information we passed, right? First name, last name, email, password. So that's the information in the body of the request. We add it to our Mongo database, and then we call this send token response. This is the one that returns the token. Now let's go and see what that send token response does. So this is what the send token response does. What it does is it calls another method on our user model. We'll go look into the details again of this. And then it gets a token. So this method of the user model returns us the token. This is the JWT token that gets returned. So we take that token. You can ignore these options for now, right? So it takes that token and it puts it in this JSON. And then it returns as a response. So you see this JSON is returned. So if you look in the Postman, success is true, and the token value is this. Success is true, and then it returns the token value. Now let's go and see how it generates that token. So if we go to model user, this is that method, get signed JWT token. So to generate this token, there is a JavaScript library, JWT, which is that JSON Web Token that we have installed in our package.json, and we're using that library to generate this token, JWT token. So this is that method. So the sign method of that library, it takes 3 parameters. So if you see, it takes the payload. This will be the payload in the middle that Diksha was showing on that website, jwt.io. That's first, this is your first parameter to that method. This is your payload. And then this is the secret that you want to sign that payload with, the entire token with. And then we can add any additional options to it. This is optional, but we decided to add when the token expires. So we've added that time. And our JWT secret, the secret that we want to sign this payload, this token with, we have stored it in our environment file. And in this case, it's just JWT secret. You can call it anything, doesn't matter. But this needs to be same across all the servers behind the load balancer, like Diksha was saying, because if you sign a token with this secret, then it needs that the same secret again for it to decode it. So if we go back here, so yeah, this is, so first parameter is the payload that needs to be signed, and then this is the secret with which, and this is any optional parameters that you want to pass in. So we're passing it 3. So, and here you can add anything in this payload. So for now, we had added first name, the ID, first name, last name. And say, for example, if we want to add, before that, let's go here. So we had seen, right, this ID, first name, last name, and IAT, it adds on its own, and this expiry, that's coming from us, right? So let's see if we want to add email to this payload and see how that works. So we're going to add email. You can add any information here, right? This email. Okay, let's build this. Okay. Now let's go to our Postman, and I'm just going to log out, and then I'm going to log in again. Okay, now let's see what this returned us back. if we go back here, we put this. So now you see it has added email to the payload. Earlier we had just first name and last name. Now email got added. So this is the place you'd make the changes to the payload if you want to add, subtract it. If you don't care about first name, last name, just remove it from here. So that's how your token would get generated. So this is the key method. Now let's see, so the token gets generated this way. Now we want to use this token to protect our routes. Now let's go and see how those routes are protected. So one of our protected routes was add to the product, right? So this is our add product route. In the earlier version, the version 1 of the API, there is no protect in front of it, right? So it's open to everyone. But in our version 2 of the API, we are going to protect our post route, which is our add product. So to do that, we are doing it through a middleware. So the way the middleware works is, to this route, you add a protect method in front of it. So what this is going to do, as soon as it looks at that post verb, as soon as it looks at that add product route, it's first going to do whatever is in protect. If it's successful, then it'll come to add products. And you can chain as many number of methods here as you want, right? So now let's go and look at what protect does. So we see protect here on line 3 comes from with middleware auth. Let's go to that file. Middleware, sorry, this one. All right, so this is our protect method. So you see what it does. So here we are reading the authorization from the headers of the request, right? So this is where it becomes crucial what you pass. Where do you pass that token? Because how you pass, that's how you're going to read it. So this is where it extracts that token from the header. What it does is, it'll say if there's an authorization header, if there is one, and then the value, does it start with bearer? So again, this is a convention that JWT says. So if it starts with bearer, then we split it with a space because there's a space right after bearer, and then we get the second value, which is, it's a 0 indexed array. So the second value is going to be our token. So now you have the value of the token. And here, this is like some error checking. If they didn't pass a token, if there's no token, just return back and say invalid. So when it returns from here, this protect method, when it returns from here, what that middleware thing does is it just stops here. It doesn't even go to the add product. So that's how we're protecting this route. So if something gets messed up, you don't have the right token, or the token didn't get passed, the request will just return the response right from here, and it goes back to Postman, and the value you see there is invalid token. So now let's see, there was a token value, so it comes here. It doesn't go here, it comes here. And there's another method on that JavaScript library, verify. So what that's the one that's going to decode the payload for you of that token. So it takes that token, that cryptic value we saw, which is this one, right? It'll take that value, and it needs the secret with which it was signed. So that's why it's important to have that secret same everywhere, because whatever you sign it with, that's the one you have to pass here. So you pass that secret, you pass that cryptic token value, and you pass it to this verify method. And what this decode contains is the payload of that token. So this decode is going to be this object, this payload object, this one, right? And you see that this payload has ID, first name, last name. So now here from that decode, we are taking the ID, and we're going to our database in the user collection, and we're trying to find that ID. If we find that ID, good, but if we don't, if any error happens here, it's going to come to this catch. And again, it'll return back saying invalid token. So for whatever reason, it wasn't able to verify the token, the signature was messed up, or someone tried to tamper with it, then this line is going to error out, and it's going to come here and it's going to say invalid token. Or if the token was valid, but that user didn't exist in our table, so the user ID was old, it got deleted, then again, this is going to error out and it'll come here. But if everything goes through fine, like the token was valid, the user exists in our table, then what this middleware does is it calls next. And what next does is it just calls the next function in the chain. And what is the next function in the chain? It's add product. So now, once it passes through protect, the user is valid, token is valid, the user exists in the database, then it'll go ahead and add the product. And this is just similar to our version 1 of the API, and it lets you add the product. And so this is how we protect the API. Now let's see if we, okay. We're going to remove the protect from here and then see if it lets us add the product, right? So, but before that, let's see what it is currently doing, because I know a bunch of time I logged in, logged out. So we had 12 items in this collection. Let's add one. So it added one more, 13. And let me log out. So meaning I don't have a user ID. I don't have a valid authorized user who's calling this API. So let me see if I can add. So it doesn't let me add because I'm not valid. Now let's go and make it public again, right? So this is how we'll make it public. It's not protected. Let me save this. And now let's go back here. So now this route is not protected. Let's see if it lets us add. Yeah, so we were able to add because it's not a protected route. So I'll add protect back again. And let me see if, okay. And now I need to log in, right? Or let me just send it first. So now I can't add the product because I'm not logged in. So let me log in again. Now I'm logged in. And now I can add. So only a logged in user can add a product. So that's how we're going to protect that out. And the next thing we will demo is the register and login user. So this register and login user, it's not part of the JWT protocol. It's just how to store your encrypted password. It's just an extra thing to keep in mind while you're working on this user ID, password, storing passwords, authorization, all that. So you don't want to, in your MongoDB, let me see. So you see this password is encrypted. The password that I created was 123456, but this password is encrypted. Now let's go and see how we can encrypt that password. Again, this is not part of JWT protocol. It's a separate thing. But now since we are here, we can do that. So for that, we go here. All right, so register, right? So when do we create the password? We created the password with the register route here. This is the one that created our user ID with the password. So I gave it the password 123456. So what that does is, it calls this Mongo, it tries to add that user into this MongoDB database. And the MongoDB database, what it does is, so there is this hook called a pre-hook. So before it saves that data, before it saves that document to the user collection, it's going to execute these two lines. So what that does is, there's another JavaScript library called bcrypt. Let's see what that bcrypt actually is. It's bcrypt.js. So we use that to hash our password. So all you need to do is you need to generate a salt for it. So it's kind of like our secret key, sort of. So you generate a salt using the gen salt method of the bcrypt library. and you pass it to the hash method of the bcrypt library. So all you have to do, so this dot password is 123456 clear text, and you pass it the salt, and then you call hash method on it. So what this bcrypt.hash is going to return you is the encrypted, the hashed password. And that's the one that will get stored in the database, right? So now say, let's comment this out and see what it stores if we don't encrypt the password. Where's my star key? All right, let me run this. Okay, so now it's not going to hash my password, and it's supposed to store it as a clear text. So I'm gonna create another user and say Sarita1, and I leave the password as this. So now let's see how that user got added in our database, in our MongoDB. This is my user collection. So you see it added this user, Sarita1, Chauhan1, and the password is clear text. We didn't hash it. So now anyone, like any DBA or anyone, can read this password clearly. But if we go back and remove this, so now if I save a user, that's going to be, the password of that user is going to be hashed. So let me create second user. And if I run this, okay, let's see what it added. So, all right. So now my password is hashed. It's not clear text, right? So that's one important thing while working on authorization. So you need users and you need to store users' password to have the passwords hashed and encrypted. So now we've encrypted and saved the hashed password in the database. Now when the user logs in, how do we compare the password, right? Because now the password is hashed, user is going to type in 123456, but we can't do a kind of a one-to-one string comparison between a hashed value and a clear text. So for that also, the bcrypt library, it provides another method, which is, I have to find it. So let's go to the, so when the user is trying to log in, right, that's when the user types in the password and we need to match it with what we have in the database. So when you call the login API, this is what it calls. You pass in the email, you pass in the password. It gets that from the request body. And find one is going to take that email, go to our Mongo database, and it's going to get that object back, user. And if it doesn't find the user, we just say invalid credential, that user doesn't exist. But if the user exists, then we call this match password on the user model. And we pass it the password that the user has typed in. So this is a clear text password. So let's see where that match password is. Okay. So again, we use the same JavaScript library and we use its compare method. And we pass it the entered password, which is the clear text 123456. And this dot password is the one it has gotten from the database. This is the hashed password. So now what that compare does is it'll take the clear password, it'll hash it with the same salt, and it'll compare with this hash. If both these match, if both the hashes match, then it'll return a true, otherwise it returns a false, right? So this compare method is going to return you true or false depending on if both the passwords matched or not. And if we go back to the auth, so this is where we had called it. So if the password did not match, then we just say invalid credentials. Otherwise, we go on further. And we had looked at the send token response already. So this is how you can compare a hashed password. So I guess that's the last that I wanted to do. So I hope it was clear. And if you guys have any questions, now is a good time.
So Savita, that solve is the secret key. The solve generate solve that we do. That is the secret key.
No, that's not the secret key.
Then
So
what
this,
is that?
so this, the user-related APIs that we looked at, register and login, those are totally separate from JWT. You could be doing the authorization through a session ID kind of thing, and you can still use this bcrypt library to hash your password. So let me go to that, solve that code first. Here, right? Okay, this one. So I think from what I know, what this GenSalt does is it'll just give you a random number, I think. It'll generate a random number and you pass it this 10 seed. So let's read what this says. So param is 10 rounds, number of rounds to use, default is 10 if omitted. So it's gonna generate, I think, a number between 1 and not 10, but to a certain, maybe 100 or 1,000, I don't exactly know, so but it'll generate a random number and that'll be your salt.
Yeah, so this number 10, so the higher the number, the more encrypted it is, the password, but then it takes more cycles on the computer as well. So 10 is a good number to use, so everybody uses 10. But the higher the number, the more encrypted the password gets.
Right, so the salt, so when it stores the, when it hashes the password for you, it's going in, let me open this. So this hashed value, this contains your salt and your hashed value both together. So when it's trying to compare, it has the salt here, it knows to extract, that bcrypt library knows to extract the salt from here and compare it with your clear text, hash it with the same salt and compare the two values.
Okay, okay.
Anything else?
No, yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, just a quick, to get an idea, every time you increase the sort round by 1, it doubles the complexity of brute force breaking. So from 8 to 10, you basically quadrupled the brute force time. That's how it's kind of calculated in the industry.
So instead of 10, if I had 8, you mean, is it?
Well, yeah, 8 is good enough.
Okay.
The industry has kind of agreed to 10, which is not too easy, not too difficult, because if you make it 100 for, let's say, it's obviously difficult, but then the amount of time to calculate 100 rounds of salt will take huge amount of time, right? So you don't want, it's like, 188 bit encryption versus 256 versus higher. 128 is good enough. 256 is absolutely good. You don't want to go more than that because then it's like, it's waste of compute power. So, so that's kind of roughly what it is. You can search on Google and you can see details, but that's what it is.
So yeah, we don't want to overkill trying to save our password, trying to protect our password. We want to overkill the performance of the application, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
I have a quick question. This is Diksha. Does the JW get deleted when you log out?
It does not automatically get deleted. You have to log out because what I was trying to do is, so while preparing for this presentation, I'd forget to log out, I'd do that. So it'll still save every time I do a login, it generates a new token. But if I try to add the product with the old token, it still lets me through because it has the valid signature for that payload. Right? The signature is still valid and it's still not expired. So it lets me use it. So that's why in the logout, we are kind of blanking out the token. So token no longer exists. But if you have the token saved somewhere else, you could still use that old token and it'll let you add the product. This is what I saw when I was kind of preparing for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most of the places that what I've seen is they would expire it 24 hours or 12 hours. So that way, even if somebody did not log out and they have an old token, they should still be okay. So just expire the token.
So yeah, at logout, we could expire the token right away.
Or what I meant was, like in your code, you are putting an expiry on a token. Just create the token, put an expiry of 12 hours or 24 hours. So that way, even if the user doesn't log out, it will expire the token.
Yeah, got it. So right now the expiry is 30 days, but yeah, we can make it shorter depending on.
Right.
So it's 30 days right now, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we could definitely make it shorter depending on the use case of the application. If it's a banking application, you want to expire it like within say 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
If it is some other kind of application like I don't know any YouTube account or something, you don't want to expire every 20 minutes, right? You want to leave it there for say maybe a month. So it depends on the use case. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think you can update the JWT once you've written to it. So once it's written, it's written. You cannot update that, go back in there and update the expiry date or something.
No. You have to know that. See, you have been. So you saw the process of how it gets generated, right? So the person who generates it has a secret. So unless you have the secret, you can't decode it. So unless you decode it, you can't update it. And for the creator, for this application, let's say, it doesn't make too much sense to update it. You might as well just delete it and just create a new one with a new expiry. So
yeah.
So there is no need to update usually.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Any more question, guys?
Oh, can you also explain the cookies, where we are sending the cookies to the user?
Yeah, okay, I'll do that because I skipped that part, right? So where we are, in the register route, right? So register calls send token calls the get signed of the.
Hey, Savita, quick tip. You can right click on the function and say go to definition.
Yeah, unfortunately, my VS Code isn't doing it.
Oh, isn't?
So
I think there is some setup missing here.
Okay, no problem.
It's in auth.js itself, controllers auth.js.
Okay. Thanks, Milton.
All the way at the bottom. Yeah, right there. You're there.
So here, I skipped over this part, right? I said, let's skip the options part. So what it's doing here, when it generates the token, and this gets called on the, when we're trying to register a new user, or when a user is trying to log in. So it calls the send token response. So we explained that the token gets generated here, and it's passed in this JSON object to the response. Right. So along with that, it's also passing a cookie. You see that dot cookie, and what it passes in the cookie, and this is where that expiry date comes in, right? Options. We have expire. No, sorry, I take that back. So in we're creating a cookie token, and this is what we pass in the cookie, right? So we add the options. Options here is this expires. So this is where the cookie is going to expire. And the JWT cookie expire value is 30. Is that 30 seconds, Milton? Do you know?
30 days. 30 days.
30 days, okay.
Yeah. So if you go into your Postman, along with the body of in Postman,
Yeah.
so along
So
with
if we
the
go
body,
here,
if you go into
right,
cookies,
right.
yeah. So we also send the cookies also.
So along with passing the token in the body of the response, we're also passing the value of the token in the cookie. So this is our cookie token, and its value is that, and this is the expiry.
So correct me if I'm wrong. So the reason why you would store it in the cookie is so that when you come back in, you can just retrieve the token automatically from the cookie and just don't ask. But you don't need to do both, I think.
Yeah, yeah, we don't
Right,
need to
right.
do.
Yeah, you
I
could
think,
do just one.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, this is a extra additional thing that you could do with the JWT.
Very nicely done, Savita. Totally.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, amazing.
Very
Yeah,
detailed and very good.
yeah, very
Thank
good.
you. And so if there are no more questions, I just want to make a mention. Like when I was preparing for this, and millions thanks to Milton for this, because he has helped a lot behind the scenes. So thank you, Milton, very much.
Oh, thank you.
So while I was preparing for this, there's a good, so there, like in this encryption and secrets and everything, there are like these three concepts, right? Hashing, encryption, and encoding. So I'm not going to explain it now, but it's a very good thing to Google while this is still fresh in your mind. So Google hashing versus encryption versus encoding. So there's these three things, and it's good to know the difference between these three. So hashing is used for data integrity. Encryption is for confidentiality, keeping your data secret. And encoding is, it just transforms the data from one format to another. And those algorithms are open. You don't need any key, nothing. There's no secret. It's just, it helps to transform your data. Like you have an object, like how we saw the payload object, right? You just want to create it into a bunch of strings without any parentheses, without any space. So it's just a data transformation. So that's just encoding and decoding. And encryption is where you used all these heavy algorithms to safeguard your data so that no one is able to get to that. And hashing is more for, like in the JWT, we use the signature, right? So it's for data integrity. It's not as much as for a secret, but it's more for like the data that you're getting. Is it the true data? Has it been tampered with? So just to verify that. So it's good to kind of Google these hashing, encryption, and encoding, the differences between these.
And like this is in this exercise was in Node.js, so I'm sure we all work in different languages. So try to find out the equivalent libraries or equivalent code to do the same thing in your language. That will be a good challenge.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good point because the two libraries that we used was the JSON Web Token and bcrypt. So there might be equivalent libraries in, say, C# and other languages.
Exactly, and like you said, right? These are concepts, so these are, and they have libraries for each language. So JWT is a concept. It's I guess everyone understands it's not a Node.js specific thing. So JWT is a standard. It's an RFC. So all languages, all platforms implement JWT. So you can, if you're in a C#, you can learn what you learned today. You can take the exact same theory and implement into your C# or a Python or a Ruby app. So just wanted to make sure you understand. So what Savita said, those three concepts, read up on them, understand them, because they will help you in, securing your application, whatever platform it is.
And Rupert, we also talked about the middleware here. So do you know if there is this middleware equivalent in other languages? That also would be a good.
Right. So lot of languages like Python, Ruby, they have a concept of middleware, and in C#, they also have a concept of middleware. They are called, generically, they're called middleware, but I'm sure they have similar concept where you can chain them, and they are hooks. So they sit in between your code, and there are libraries. So just try to Google them, and you'll probably find something. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, most of the languages have middleware.
Okay.
Yeah, it was an amazing session. I mean, it was very well prepared, both Diksha and Savita. I hope
Thank you.
everyone enjoyed it. Yeah. So I will